Let's not even get into the whole nuclear energy being used for war, like nuclear weapons. Maybe someday we'll agree to get rid of all those nukes. But what about using nuclear energy for peaceful purposes? The discovery of nuclear energy is a result of Western philosophy and Western science. When Einstein came up with that equation, E equals mc squared, it basically laid the groundwork for the atomic bomb. You know that famous formula, E is energy, and m is mass. Just take that small m, multiply it by the speed of light c, and square it. Crazy, right? That little m contains a huge amount of energy, and Einstein was the one who figured it out. One of Einstein's biggest regrets in his later years was that he believed he shouldn't have discovered E equals mc squared, and even if he did, he shouldn't have spilled the beans to everyone. But he couldn't help himself, and he shared it with the world. So, Einstein left a message for future generations, which was supposed to be opened 50 years after his death. But guess what? People who were still around couldn't wait and opened it earlier. Inside, it basically said this: if humanity is crazy enough to plan a fourth world war, what weapons do you think they'll use? Rocks and sticks. Yep, it means that if civilization manages to survive only up to the Third World War, then it's game over after that. But if they're still itching for a fight, then it's the Fourth War, and they'll go back to using caveman weapons like rocks and sticks. Using nuclear energy is a real danger to our modern civilization. So, let's say we've got it and we decide to use nuclear power only for peaceful purposes. Does that mean we can be sure it will be safe? After the Chernobyl disaster and then the Fukushima nuclear accident in Japan, we've seen that nuclear power plants have experienced accidents after earthquakes and tsunamis. What does the Fukushima crisis tell us? It's another example that proves the idea that advanced and highly developed technology can keep nuclear energy safe is just plain wrong. What's the problem with saying we can use nuclear energy completely safely? It assumes that humans are perfect and never mess up. But let's face it, humans are prone to making mistakes. We're not perfect creatures, and this belief isn't based on science but more on philosophy and religion. From a philosophical standpoint, acknowledging that humans make mistakes carries a deeper meaning. It suggests that within the very essence of being human, there's a kind of inherent absurdity. If we look at the idea of humans making mistakes from a religious point of view, it is derived from the fact that we're born with sin. We've got this thing called original sin. When you're carrying that original sin baggage or just have inherent absurdity in your existence, you're bound to mess up. And once those mistakes happen, there's no going back. How can we even think of using nuclear energy with absolute safety? That's why philosophy and religion should guide us to avoid having nuclear power plants anywhere on this planet. Word is that the Germans are getting ready to pass such a law, but the Americans are against it and said even though we've had a few nuclear leaks and crises, they say we shouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. With these conflicting views, where should we stand? If you've dabbled in philosophy, you'd know that humans are prone to messing up. So, the first position is to ditch all nuclear power plants. But the Japanese just can't handle that. Why, you ask? Well, their geography screws them over. They don't have enough natural energy sources, and capitalism keeps churning out stuff endlessly, you know? Their industries need a constant supply of natural energy, but they're stuck in a tough spot. It's like the big guy upstairs said, "Hey Japan, I'm gonna stick you on this earthquake-prone island with a lousy environment." So, we're like, hey Japanese folks, you gotta give up on nuclear energy, alright? In the name of God, listen up, since we haven't achieved world peace and we still have borders, you gotta accept your fate, you know? If you're making $10 a year, spend $5 on buying energy from other countries with resources, and use the remaining $5 to improve your lives. Can the Japanese accept this advice? Nah, man. They can't do it. So, you see, the Japanese economy is stuck between a rock and a hard place. They get energy and resources from outside, and they sell their products abroad. They can't just be like, I'll spend my hard-earned money on buying energy from other nations, set some aside for lights and heating, and use the leftovers to improve our lives. They want to live it up like those capitalist Western countries. That's the rule of capitalism. Check it out, there are two annoying fishbones we gotta deal with. First, there's this nuclear energy thing, and it's stuck in our throats. And then there's the second bone, terrorism. It's gone global, dude. Now, why am I singling out terrorism and seeing it as another bone choking humanity? Well, because terrorism rejects modern political states, man. Terrorists aren't trying to create their own fancy new country. Nah, they're against all countries, bro. But here's the deal, we gotta be clear on what terrorism really means. Otherwise, we might end up calling guerrilla warfare led by Chairman Mao terrorism too. That's not right, man. Trying to seize power and establish a new regime ain't the same as terrorism. Terrorism's goal is to wipe out all states. That's why countries today, no matter their systems or different beliefs, have joined forces to fight against terrorism. Because terrorism is the enemy of the state's own enemy. Let me ask you, why does terrorism even happen? It's because people have lost faith in politics solving the conflicts and problems of human life. They see politics as just another power play. It's all about limiting the demands that should be addressed instead of actually resolving those clashes of interests. And guess what? That makes them lose trust in the state itself. So, what's the bottom line? It means that those fancy modern bourgeois political states that have been taking the world stage lately are getting their foundations rocked. The state is falling into this weird state of nothingness. Nowadays, it's rare to find real statesmen. Most of them are just playing politics, you know? So, we can see that there are indeed two fishbones stuck in the throat of contemporary humanity, like a real thorn in our side. This is our 21st century reality. How the heck do we digest these two fishbones? Can science save the day? Maybe if we mix natural and social sciences. Digesting these fishbones ain't something science alone can handle. We need to tap into our inner thinkers and wise guys. Yeah, I'm talking about philosophy, dude. Our era is screaming for it. Philosophy is all about the love of wisdom. So, what exactly is philosophy? Well, the easiest way to put it is to use the word philosophy in English or philosophy in German. When you break it down, these words come from Latinized versions of an ancient Greek term. The term philosophy is made up of two Greek words. One is philion, which means love translated to English, and the other is sophia, which means wisdom. Put M together, and you've got philosophy or philosophy and all that jazz. From a word construction point of view, philosophy is the love of wisdom. That's why they call it the love of wisdom or the study of wisdom. Hey, folks. When you decide to study philosophy, don't think it's all about reaching the highest level of knowledge, you know, like super-duper capital K knowledge. Nah, unless you're talking about it in a different way, like how Hegel sees it, where totally grasping absolute ideas is considered absolute knowledge. That's a bigger idea of knowledge, man. Jumping into philosophy ain't about hunting down knowledge, not at all. When you dive into economics or physics, you're on the hunt for knowledge. But when you dive into philosophy, it's all about searching for wisdom. So, what's the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Just because you got knowledge doesn't mean you got wisdom, my friend. Just because you're all about science doesn't mean you're all about deep thinking. That's what I'm trying to get at, the first point of the second aspect. Here's the deal. Someone can be a know-it-all in different subjects, loaded with knowledge, but that doesn't mean they're wise. They might be lacking real smarts and just have a bunch of facts stored up. On the flip side, there could be a person with limited knowledge, maybe even can't read, but carries deep wisdom within them. You wouldn't expect an illiterate person to be a walking encyclopedia, right? But they could surprise you with their incredible wisdom. We've seen such folks throughout Chinese history, and the top-notch example is Huineng, 8th century CE, the sixth patriarch of Zen Buddhism. Huineng is the real deal, the OG founder of Zen Buddhism. Zen is like the ultimate Chinese version of Buddhism. And get this, Huineng, even though he couldn't read, laid the foundation for Zen and left a massive mark on Chinese intellectual history. Our main man, Chairman Mao Zedong, had this to say about Huineng. Back in the Tang dynasty, we had this dude, Huineng, a philosophical thinker who's considered the real founder of Zen Buddhism. His Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch is mind-blowing and resonates with the common folks. Mao's got it right on that assessment, spot on. So, why is Huineng's Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch considered the people's Buddhist scripture? It's because Huineng shook things up in the world of Buddhist studies. He broke free from the snobby intellectual cliques and made Buddhism available to the everyday folks. In this book, Huineng's disciples wrote down his teachings, and there's this one quote where he says, "Even the lowest of the low can be super wise, while the highest of the high might be pretty clueless." When he talks about the lowest of the low, he means those at the rock bottom of society, who can still have incredible wisdom, real smarts. On the other hand, the high and mighty might not have a clue. That's what Huineng said. It shows that our wisdom doesn't depend on our social status or how much book smarts we have. That's why Mao Zedong said the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch is the Buddhist book for the people. If you all go through higher education, whether it's a 4-year undergrad program or even going for a graduate degree, it means you're constantly stuffing your head with loads of knowledge. But hey, that's not enough to pat ourselves on the back. What if we haven't grown wiser or sharpened our critical thinking skills? Our higher education would just be a training program for memorizing facts, getting ready for future jobs. You know what's a crucial part of higher education? It's nurturing our thinking, expanding our minds, and reaching a higher level of understanding. Where do you go to find wisdom? Don't think you'll get it by burying your nose in finance textbooks. Sure, you'll gain advanced knowledge and stay up to date, but that's not the same as wisdom. To find wisdom, you gotta dive into real-life experiences, but that alone won't guarantee it. You also gotta crack open another kind of book, the classics of humanities. Real-life experiences are like a text-less book we've been reading for years, and it just keeps getting thicker, right? It's a book without words. But we also need to read a book with actual words. And no, I'm not talking about scientific books. I mean the classics of philosophy, religion, literature, and art. Those are the real deal. We gotta go back and forth between these two books to uncover wisdom.